Hi everyone, this is Heather Lawton from the Flourish Academy. This is episode 561. This question came up recently in the Flourish Academy membership on one of our coaching calls. We were talking about whether or not we should retain or delete the raw files from our client sessions once those photos have been delivered to the client. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments. Do you delete your raw files or do you keep them? If so, how long do you keep them? Because in my mind, storage costs money, and I want to really evaluate my need to keep them. I do keep a lot of raw files, but I'm not sure if it's totally necessary. And I believe this is actually a two-part question because there are all of the raw files that you took at an event, and then there's a subset of raw files that end up being processed and delivered to the client. For example, if I photograph 3,000 raw files at a wedding and I deliver, say, 500 to 600 JPEG images, well, that means there's a set of raw files that aren't being processed and will never see the light of day. That's actually a really easy delete for me. Any raw file that did not make the cut gets deleted and removed from my backup system. That is a tremendous amount of data and space, and I just don't understand the need to keep raw files that are never going to see the light of day. Now, one argument to that could be like, what if the client comes back and asks for a photo that I didn't deliver? Well, in that case, my honest response to that is, I'm sorry, that photo doesn't exist. It didn't meet my standards. It could have been out of focus. It could have been blurry, exposed improperly. It could have been just a poor photo. It doesn't matter. If it didn't make the cut, I don't have it. Because play out this scenario. If a bride said to you, hey, do you remember we were standing in the hallway and you took that picture of Aunt Edna? We were about to be announced. We were in the back of the venue and I don't see it in my gallery. Do you have it? And you say, let me check. What you just did was open a can of worms that tells that bride there are photos that she hasn't seen. Worse, let's say you find the photo and you say, oh yeah, here it is. Well, she's going to be clued into well, then where are all of the photos? I want to see all of them. What else am I missing? And I just don't want to open that can of worms. And I also will not ever lie to a client and say it doesn't exist if it in fact exists. So as I'm delivering my files to the client, all of the rejected raw files get wiped out on my working external hard drive and my backup external hard drive and my Backblaze account, gone. So when and if she asks for something, it just doesn't exist. And some of you are going to freak out about this because I've heard it and you're going to be like, oh, I just couldn't do that. I would have to go back and look. I just have to have them. But I want you to follow that train of association out. Why do you want to show her a photo that was out of focus, like you completely missed it, or the exposure was totally off and unfixable? I don't want to put myself in that position. And in 17 years of photographing hundreds of weddings, I don't know, I want to say it happened once where someone asked me if there was a photo of something that she didn't see in her gallery. And when I said no, she was like, okay, thanks. And that was the end of the story. Like, what are you afraid is going to happen? If you tell your client, no, that doesn't exist, that's usually the end of the story. I think you might be catastrophizing in your mind or making up some scenario where they're going to get so furious and they're going to sue you. And that's just ludicrous. It's not going to happen. So in that regard, I think deleting the raw files that will never see the light of day because they have been marked for rejection is easy for me. I wipe them out and they're gone. The second part to that question is, what about the raw files that end up being converted to JPEGs and then delivered to the client? Okay, there was a time when in my wedding workflow, I would deliver most of the photos in color, but a few of them would be in black and white. And I thought to myself, if the bride comes to me and asks for these photos in color, I want to have them. So I would retain the raw images for that reason, in case I wanted to go back to it. Well, then I shifted my workflow shortly after that so that all of the images I deliver to my clients are a super clean edit, all in color and all in black and white. So And the reason I say super clean edit is because for the first, I don't know, several years of my career, my edits were not super clean. We were using all of these crazy filters. I had this one Photoshop action where it like totally blurred the entire image. It turned it black and white and put a green filter on it. It's so ugly, I can't even stand to look at it. I used it all the time. I loved it. So I don't do that anymore. I just produce super clean color photos to the client, also in black and white. In that regard, is there a reason for me to retain the raw files to go back to them to change something? No, there is not. So I could delete them and remove them and not think anything of it. Okay. The truth is, I must confess, I have not done that. I have kept the raw files from most, if not all, of my weddings. And my IT manager, that's my husband, says, do you really need to keep these raw files? And I'm like, no, I don't. I just do. And he said, have you ever once gone back to re-edit a session? No, I haven't. I've thought about it. I've thought, man, I'd like to go back like a couple years after I learned something. I'm like, I'd like to go back and re-edit that one. No, I'm not going to do that. And neither are you. You say you're going to. You're not. You're going to be too busy. You're not going, okay, maybe in a rare circumstance, but I doubt it. So do I need to keep those raw files? I don't think I do. Do you? No, I don't think you do. If you are a low volume photographer and we're talking about 30 to 40 raw files per session, I don't think that adds up to be anything astronomical, although, think about it, I've been in business for nearly 20 years. That does add up, and I have stacks and stacks of hard drives and backups in the basement. So yeah, and space is money, so that could definitely add up. But if you're a wedding photographer or you're high volume, think sports, I think this could be something you would really need to explore and think about. Is it worth you keeping? Is it worth me keeping the 500 or 600 raw files from a wedding that has been delivered, is backed up in triplicate, both on-site and off-site, with a super clean JPEG edit as well as black and white? I don't think there is. I think, and in fact, in some years, I want to say, I was looking recently at one of my archive drives and I had gone back. It was like 2012 and earlier, I had wiped out some of those raw files. I did keep the JPEGs. Of course, I keep the JPEGs. By the way, in my contract, I don't even have to do that. When I deliver the files to the client, there's a contract for the files, and it says that Weddings by Heather is not responsible for maintaining a backup copy of these files. It is highly recommended that the client do so, and I give some examples. So legally, if a client came to me 2, 5, 10 years from now and asked for their files, I don't legally need to have them. I do, and I can absolutely deliver them. Again, 17 years worth of weddings, I think twice. 2 brides have come to me and said, I lost my files, we moved, they were on a physical CD back in the day. Could we get another copy? Yes, I got them another copy, no problem. So that's also unlikely to happen, but still, okay, I like to be prepared for that. So I'm going to keep a copy of those files, but I don't legally have to. I think these are all important questions to consider in your file management strategy because space costs money. So you're going to have to store these backups somewhere. Are you going to keep the raw files? I would love to hear from you in the comments. Do you keep the raw files that don't get delivered? I just don't think that makes any sense. I don't know why you would keep raw files of blurry photos. I don't understand. If you could explain to me a reason for that, I'd love to hear it. But do you keep the raw files that were converted to JPEG and delivered, processed? That I can understand a little bit more. You might want to go back to it, but for what reason? If you are delivering clean edits, I don't know that there's a reason for that. It's just something to think about. I hope that you found this useful. I'll see you in the next video.